I saw another day, only to scream into the night. Nothing ever tries to change, even if I want to realize. 'Cause I've been sitting here, same old ways, taking off about the same mistake. Darling, when you go away, it won't be as simple for you.
Yo, guys, it is RDS, Old Man G here, back again, and I'm joined again by Tom, the journalist, where we're going to give you a breakdown, obviously, the news coming out of this whole transfer circus at this point. But before we get into just a few things, first thing, apologies for those who were waiting yesterday. I did schedule it wrong. Unfortunately, I was at work, so I couldn't obviously do the show. So apologies for those who were waiting last night. I really apologize about that. So hopefully we'll have obviously a good show today to make up for you. Second, obviously, as always, if you're new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter and smash the notification button as well. Obviously, Tom can't be here for as long, maybe max an hour or so. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you get them in the chat. We'll obviously do the same format where Tom will obviously give us the latest updates regarding the whole transfer thing. But if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I will get to them. If you want me to get them to them sooner, obviously you can click the super chat button. The money obviously goes straight to the channel. We get to your comments as well, and obviously consider shopping the store for the latest merch, etc., etc. So before we go into, just quick shout out. I will read your comments, but shout out to everyone in the chat. Ilya United, Lucky, Sid, Bart, Scott. Really appreciate you guys, and I will get to your comments. But Tom, thanks again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. How are you doing?
Yeah, not so bad, G. Anyway, and yeah, let's, as you said, let's have a good show and have a good discussion and everything. So yeah,
cool. So I think the first thing we'll start is obviously a lot. The announcement on this week was that the Glazers were basically going to decide on their preferred bidder by any time between probably now till about Tuesday of next week. So I guess the thing I ask is kind of like, where are we with that process? And who do you think is looking more likely to be the preferred bidder?
So where we are with the process, as I reiterated on previous streams when I've come on, privately, if we go back to a bit of a timeline, it would have been 14 days ago from today, so 2 weeks ago from today, the Glazer family as a whole, Joel, Avram, Darcy, Brian, Kevin, all of the different siblings, had come in agreement that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's offer that was on the table of his secondary proposal to buy 50% of Manchester United, and then Joel and Avram were happy to stay in with 20% while their other four siblings would be bought out. And ultimately, from that point there, the Glazer family as a whole had decided that was the best course of action, because the four other siblings, they want out 100%. That has been from day dot since the announcement came October, November time that the Glazer family were looking at strategic alternatives. The four siblings all stated their willingness that they wanted to cash out on their shares, either with Joel and Avram or without them. They want out, effectively. So people look at that and think from there, privately, the Glazer family then had decided Sir Jim Ratcliffe is and should be the preferred bidder. That was on a Friday. You then had the weekend on the Friday evening, where Rain contacted Sheikh Jassim's group and stated to the Qataris, "You are not on the preferred bidder's ballot sheet." Sir Jim Ratcliffe's proposal, and they outlined all of the details, the finances, and what his offer and package would give to Joel and Avram to stay with 20% in like 3-4 years if he was to buy them out. They gave them all the figures and the numbers, and they said, "Look, this is how it is for now. you are more than welcome to come back in with another bid, but you need to put a bigger number in for the Glazer family to consider moving you onto the ballot sheet. The Qatar delegation took the Saturday, the Sunday, and then on the Monday, where myself and you, we did the stream. I said that Sheikh Jassim, it's very likely that he is going to make another offer upon what I'd already reiterated at the time.
Yeah.
And from there, Sheikh Jassim's delegation said, "We'll give you what you want. We'll give you a ultimatum. It's the biggest cash offer that we are putting on the table right now. As far as I'm aware, I don't know the official figures, but from what I've been told, the figure that is on the table now from Sheikh Jassim and the Qataris has more money up front now than Sir Jim Ratcliffe would do to buy Manchester United in 3-4 years' time. So he could buy in now with 3 billion, and then in 3-4 years' time, his sort of proposed figure to buy Joel and Avram out, if that is an agreed upon figure, whether it's optional, obligatory to buy out at that time or whatever, if there is a number attached to the years that the Joel and Avram would stay, and that number sticks and it doesn't change, then the Qataris have the better financial package on the table as it stands right now to buy all of them out. So effectively, it is in the minds of what Joel and Avram are wanting. And the point of where we are now, who they will choose, Joel has been swayed by his other 4 siblings. He's not been fully turned, but he's prepared to turn. And what I mean by he's prepared to turn is that Joel looks at the option on the table with Avram as to say, if you're prepared to go with me, we will sell fully. And Joel gets to the point now where he's looked at the numbers. The Qataris, they then made the improved offer, which then the Glazer family looked over for that full week. Upon with Rain, this myth that Rain were out of the picture of it all, then ultimately you got to the point now where with Joel and Avram, they have now looked at the assessments of it. Avram is still undecided at this point. Nobody knows what Avram is thinking. Joel's in the mindset of, if Avram wants to go with me, I'm prepared to sell out my sort of 10% that I would stay with if Avram's prepared to go with me. So effectively now, Joel is effectively the middleman between a full sale or a partial sale, because if Avram doesn't make his mind, if Avram decides that, no, I want to stay, Joel will be prepared to stay with them. But if Avram decides, no, the financial package that's on the table right now, with what I know anyway, with the Qataris, in terms of it's the bigger financial package now, in terms of the sort of figures that Sir Jim would try and buy out in the long term, the Glazers would get more for their money now than they would in the long term if Sir Jim was to buy them out. If that is the case, and the information that I've been told is factual, I don't see how Avram could really try and persuade Joel in a way to stay, only unless Sir Jim is prepared to renegotiate what he would buy the other 20% out from the 2 siblings later down the line and not set a number, if that makes much sense. So effectively, where we're at now is privately 14 days ago, Sir Jim had already been decided. And as we stand right now, Sir Jim, privately, is still preferred bidder. Joel is prepared to turn, but Avram needs to decide what he wants to do. Because if he's prepared to sell up now, and as I say, the numbers that are on the table from the Qataris make sense to sell now rather than in the future, then, in theory, Sheikh Jassim should and probably would be announced as preferred bidder. But if Avram and Joel look at Sir Jim Ratcliffe or they speak to him and they state, look, we're prepared to stick it and go with you, so long as you don't set a price that you want to buy us out with in 3-4 years' time, and we can negotiate that with you. It's later, like I say, later down the line, we will stick with you. If not, we have a better financial package right now with the Qataris, where they will give us more money that we can get now, rather than sitting around for 3-4 more years, where we're not going to make any more than what we would just cashing out now. So effectively, where we are at now is the official numbers are that Sheikh Jassim right now has the better price and the better valuation of Manchester United right now as we stand, in terms of the here and now, but also trumping what Sir Jim's proposing in 3-4 years' time. Therefore, the Qataris really have the better offer to bow out now. The only thing that can hold this whole proposal and the whole saga back, and this might be the reasoning of the delay, is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has one last card to play. And that is if he doesn't set a price to buy Joel and Avram out in the future, then Sir Jim Ratcliffe, personally anyway, if I had to predict, I would say he will be selected as preferred bidder. That is the make or break of the Sir Jim Ratcliffe deal, is if you set a figure to buy Joel and Avram out with 20% in 3-4 years' time, which could be £1 billion, 1.5, 2 billion pounds. It depends on the valuation growth of Manchester United. But as we stand right now, the package right now, the Qataris have the better financial package right now. So, in theory, the Qataris would win the bidding war to buy Manchester United and would be announced as preferred bidders. However, Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Avram's mind isn't made up, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe can completely outweigh the Qataris. Doesn't matter about financial, it's about mindset now. And if he states, I'm not going to set a price tag to buy you out, then Sir Jim Ratcliffe will be probably announced as being preferred bidder, if not entirely be announced as preferred bidder. And the Qataris in that case, all I would say is this: they put the better numbers on. People have been saying put the bigger number on the table. As far as I know, they have done that now. They've stretched their arm to the table and they've put all the chips in. There is nothing else to give, and they won't, and they're not prepared to give any more. And as we said, in the last stream, it's deal or no deal. So take it or leave it. And like I say, Joel is prepared to turn, but he will only turn with Avram. If Avram doesn't turn, forget it, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe is staying as preferred bidder.
Thanks for that just overall update, Tom. Really appreciate it. I'm going to get into some comments, but before I get into some comments actually as well, it's like, so I think the first thing is like, why do you think Avram is so? Because everything seems to be tied towards Avram. Because if this was a democracy, if this was a family decision, because it's almost like it's weird. It's like they all have the same. I know. I guess sometimes it goes to the shares. I guess, but it's like most of the family want to sell. Joel now at this point is kind of undecided. So it literally seems to be all on Avram. And why is Avram reluctant to part ways in Manchester United? Is it because he genuinely believes in his deluded mind that United will go up in value and that he's going to lose money, or what? What do you think?
Well, how can I put it? The sort of mindset with Avram, I'll take you back 8 to 16 months when Joel and Avram personally, on behalf of the Glazer family and the financial aides in the Rothschilds, they went to Apollo Investment and they said, we want you to buy out our 4 siblings. And you look at from there where they couldn't agree upon a deal because the finances didn't meet. Apollo weren't prepared to meet the figures that the 4 siblings wanted to be bought out. But Manchester United at the time was a lot lower maybe in the valuation just based on it was in a COVID market or relapsing from that. From there, you then look at Joel and Avram, and in Avram's mind, he looks at it from the perspective of, we believe Manchester United can double in the evaluation that it is at now. If, for example, the bids that have been rumoured to go in, there is no official numbers from me anyway, but the rumoured bids that some journalists are floating out, like £5 billion. Joel and Avram believe a new stadium, a new training facility, and potentially an improvement in the men's team, growing the women's team as well, and potentially bringing out and breaking out another superstar from the youth academy, like you have the story right now. We say Garnacho, for example, a player of that profile who then goes on to be the David Beckham of the class of '92. You know what I'm getting at? Something like that, and goes on to higher highs. If you have that sort of marketability, that's the sort of thing Avram is looking at and thinking, we can double our money here. Like, we've got thick skin. We've sat here for 18 years, waiting another 3 years to get another, waiting and seeing if Sir Jim builds a new stadium or and a minority group give us the money to do it ourselves. Like it just look. I look at that and I just think you can say it for what it is. It is greed, but it's getting what's best for you financially. And at the end of the day, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the only thing that is alluding around him, and the reason why I think Avram, he's dipped his toe in Sir Jim's offer more so than the Qataris is. He's prepared to allow them to stay and watch what he does effectively, but he's not said what he is going to do if he gets in, and that is really the make or break of it, really, if I'm being honest, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe, by not stating that he's going to improve the stadium, he's going to invest in however much money, like the 9-2 Foundation, at least with Sheikh Jassim, have stated, we're prepared to redevelop Old Trafford or build a new one. We're prepared to invest £800 million straight into men's, women's, and youth teams as a budget, as a startup for the first 3 years. So they've got their financials in place to do the plans that they're saying. Whereas with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he's not stating that at this point in time, and the reason being he doesn't have to. And the Glazer family are not interested in what you have to do, only unless it suits them in the future. And for me, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe had put his proposal on the table, Avram, Avram would be sitting there high as a kite and proud to say, right, I'm staying. And then if he stays, Joe stays. And then suddenly, the Glazer family, and Joel and Avram in particular, they get what they wanted 8 to 16 months ago with Apollo Investment, where that deal didn't work out. But the only difference is you have an individual who's prepared to buy in instead of an investment vehicle. So you have that sort of narrative, but the only problem is they will cede control to Sir Jim. But love it or hate it, the shares that Joel and Avram have are the biggest shares out in terms of two and a partnership out the whole Glazer family. Therefore, they control more of the club in terms of their individual shares. And if they're going together, suddenly then Sir Jim can come in with his investment and the money that he has behind him, either via Ineos himself or, an investment vehicle bank, whatever. But effectively, Avram's mindset from the get-go was there's always been a price. That's the thing that I've always heard around Avram Glazer. This was 4 years ago, this was 6 years ago, and this is still to this day. There is a price in mind from Avram that he and Joel agree upon in terms of the heads of the family, the leading members of the family.
Yeah.
There is a price that they will sell for. It's just dependent upon if somebody meets that price. And listen, the quotas of 6 billion, you can say it for what it is. I don't think they would stinge if somebody got close to it. I think they'd look at it. But if you didn't go, I don't think they'd be hasty if you didn't directly go for it straight away. But like you say, it's about the numbers, and the numbers that you can get here and now are better than what you can get in 3 or 4 years in terms of the improved Qatari offer. And that's why I'm saying you suddenly had Joel, who was so set and fixated with Avram, to say, no, Sir Jim's privately, Sir Jim, you're with us. Like, we're taking you. And then Rain gave the Qataris the ultimatum, and then they forced the Qataris' hand. And then suddenly now Joel's undecided. Like, love it or hate it, he has done a flip-flop. He's done a U-turn. And there must be a reason as to why you do a U-turn that quickly. And you do a U-turn that quickly because there's a better deal there. Hence what I'm saying in terms of the numbers that for right now are better than what they would get in 3-4 years if Sir Jim's to set a price to buy them out in 3-4 years. If not, then Sir Jim, I think, has got complete control of it personally.
Thanks for that, Tom. Let me just quickly read some comments. And obviously, guys, obviously Tom's running for a little bit, so get your questions in. Just quickly skim through some of them. Ilya says the Cows staying, not selling United. That is a worry. We're having other meetings with them. Lucky Singh says we proof of funds and they'll offer Glazers huge money. Well, 5.5 to 5.8 billion. This is Qatar. I'm not sure about that. as far as are you talking about? I will bench McTominay. Is that for the weekend? Well, most of them might as well not. We might as well play Weghorst. I mean, the game's a dead rubber game anyway. Sid says, "I hope for Qatar." Bart says, "Should Man United give Man City a guard of honor for their stupendous repeat? Manchester is a City United." But just remind me, as a Liverpool fan, I'll have Liverpool qualify for the CL. Just let me know. I know if you're watching, but just as Liverpool fan, have Liverpool qualify for the Champions League. Where are they in the league? Just let me know. But Sheikh Jassim will probably buy another PL club like West Ham, Tottenham Hotspur, or Liverpool if the bid fizzles out here. I mean, that is a worry, I think. But I mean, he said, he has said in parts that he wouldn't go for another English club, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure. I think that the Premier League is where it's at right now. I think in terms of money in football, and we're seeing with Newcastle and others where the investment is there, and there are now a lot of owners that are willing, because they've been losing a lot of money from the clubs, they're willing to sell out. I'm sure Daniel Levy would be tempted potentially, so yeah. Scott says, just get on with it. Transfer women like this. I know, but that's Manchester United for you, isn't it? It's never that easy. It's never that simple. We're linked with this player, and then, reports for 2 months, and then eventually we either don't get them or not. Bart says, we need Liverpool to be owned by Qatar. That's never going to happen because your owners ruled it out, unfortunately. Or fortunately for others. The Glazers are probably staying, hence the delay in announcing when the season is done. Well, that is also a worry. I think Ten Hag's will argue, well, he couldn't have done any better. Chances are that despite the investment from the European, I don't think he would exceed this. No, I think that if he's got considerable backing, he'll be fine. I mean, you can now get De Jong and offer a substantial amount to force Barca's hand, as opposed to spending ages negotiating back and forth, and then coming up with nothing. So, I think the financial. That was, I think, the thing with like City and what Pep did is that at the end of the day, the City Glazers said, listen, we believe in you. We're going to get you whoever it is that you want. That was it. That's what they did. We believe in you. We'll get you. We'll get whatever player you want, even if we spend. Pep wasted 200 million on fullbacks. People forget. So it's different when you're back. Like, yes, of course, I'm not saying that every signing he's going to make is going to be fantastic. No manager has been, even Pep. But the fact that you can go out and back your manager and get the players that he wants or is interested in, that's a big achievement, So what we need. Cameron says, "What's good, boys? Thank you." Scotland says, "Just get on it with." Yes, we said that. Question from Bart says, "Would you prefer Sheikh Jassim to own Liverpool as they are a better run club, bigger club, better manager, and better squad than Manchester United?" Now, unfortunately, this isn't a question I can pose to Tom. It's just a legitimate panel because it's literally just a quick breeze through. In being that, what I don't understand, Bart, is that Sheikh Jassim wants to buy a team that is at least going to be in the Champions League next season. Okay, I think that's a key question. That at least is the future. Your club isn't in the Champions League, and so it's going to be a bit tricky. But it is what it is. Apparently, Glazers has Qatar's investment money for transfer. Glazers don't want to use their money for transfers. They want to keep. Is it true? Is that no? I had a feeling.
In terms of Carmen's question about the Qataris for investment money, why need investment money? You've just qualified for the Champions League, like you get you've got your own money effectively, really, and what you generate. But as I've said and reiterated before, not to drag it on the answer, but because of FFP, Manchester United regulate that they can only spend £100 million just on its own as a set fee. That's without the player sales that they need to make for this summer. They need to make, I would say, probably at least in excess of £80 to £100 million to have a successful transfer window of getting majority of the targets, if not all of the targets that Erik ten Hag wants, in terms of the sort of profile of the players that he's looking at. And yes, there's been names bashing around and links recently, primarily more an English market of players, of whom that we know the valuation of players is increasing for exactly British tax, British market. Like, love it or hate it, that the market for British players, you pay a premium, and even with Manchester United as a name, even just in Europe, you pay a premium for players. So imagine for a rival Premier League club, you're going to be paying the Man United tax, but you're also going to be paying the English tax. So there is a little bit of fluctuation with in terms of that, but No, in terms of investment money for transfers, as far as I know, with Erik ten Hag, he has £100 million set, but determining on the player sales that are in place, and Man United complying with FFP regulations, so long as Manchester United sell as much as they spend, so if they spend 100 of their own money and they sell 100, there's £200 million budget that people will be saying that he needs, maybe more, maybe he can utilise a little bit less, whatever. But probably £200 million is, if you like, in the middle of it's good enough, but it's not over the top. And it's not an excessive amount that you need to spend effectively. It's a fair amount, I guess you could say.
Fair. Thanks, mate. Quick. Just got a super chat from King Stash. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Really appreciate it and supporting the channel. Sancho on the right with Rashford and Martial were cooking like preseason. Did you hear what the Nice captain said about Sir Jim Ineos? I suspect it was something good. Because if I don't think Casper, all I know is what Casper Schmeichel said, and he was basically saying this guy is awesome, we should get him. But if it's no.
The Nice captain, it's the Brazilian centre back Dante.
Okay.
That didn't know anyway. He came out publicly via the French media, and he claimed and stated that the structure around the club and the actual organisation of the board and everything, like, he didn't name names, but he named positions and roles effectively. Like, the structure is not in line with the club's vision, or like before these owners came in, like there was a plan in place.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost as if the owners that are in place in Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos, like, they've had a plan, but they've not stuck to the plan of what they set effectively.
I see.
Not stating to what you're saying effectively is what he basically voiced and said.
I see. Well, I know that. I mean, I think the thing is that, like, he can say that, but I think the problem is that, like, I think the thing is with the Sheikh Jassim and with being Manchester United, because Manchester always talked about, there's always going to be a lot of criticism. Whereas I think with Sir Jim, because of hashtag British tax, there is not going to be that level of a Brit owning the biggest club in the world, that type of thing. I think there's going to be a lot of that, and so any legitimate criticism will just be sort of, it's almost like, I'm not saying that Sir Jim is going to be as bad as Mike Ashley, but like, I don't feel like a lot of the British press really criticized Mike Ashley that much. Newcastle fans did a lot, but they did the British press, the British media, even the sports media. Not really. They would say, yeah, they don't like the ownership, they don't like it, blah, blah, but they would never really kind of go at the ownership per se, So that's fascinating. But thank you for the super King Stash, man. Really appreciate your ongoing support. Let me just quickly go back to some of the questions. So it says, okay, will the new owner have to write off the 600 million debt after owning the club, or would this sum be settled by the departing Glazers? The Glazers aren't going to be settling that sum. They're not going to settle that sum. But am I wrong in that, Tom?
Well, there's two sort of answers. There's one for the Sir Jim bid and there's one for the Qatari bid. The Qataris put forward one bid, but it had terms and triggers with it. And what I mean by terms and triggers is one of the offers included paying the debt within the figure and the price. So, for example, not to speculate in terms of the figure, but if I had to evaluate it, you could have, like, Manchester United, the debt's at 600 million, as Bart says. The Qataris could offer £6 billion, but then you include the debt, which then knocks it down to £5.4 billion, effectively, including the debt. Or you then have a scenario where the Qataris put in a straight offer of, say, £5 billion, but that's not including buying out the debt straight away. Something like that. So it's depending upon what option is best. The Glazer family, like you've already said, G, they're not going to care if the debt's cleared within the offer or not. So long as it doesn't affect them financially, I don't really think they're going to care if the debt's cleared with the bid or without it, because with or without it being included in the sale, if it was to go to Sheikh Jassim and the Qataris, then they will clear the debt after purchase anyway if they need to. That's never been like a problem. That's never been a reflection of it. So the £600 million debt would not be on Manchester United's books. before purchase or after purchase in the Qataris case. They'd rather it be in the purchase because it's done, it's dusted, and it's one less thing to sort about. Now with Sir Jim Ratcliffe in the case, because he's only buying 50% and you're buying half of the business, effectively, you don't fully own the business, albeit you control it, but you would then, the debt that is on Manchester United is then obligated to you as the controlling owner. Therefore, Joel and Avram and the rest of the Glazer family, they avoid the debt being attached to their name because they don't have their name on Manchester United anymore. But because we don't know what Sir Jim's proposal is in terms of debt, it's hard to say if he's going to clear all of it. Because the research that I've heard anyway is he's going to use Ineos in a way to sort the debt out. Now, I don't know in particular what he's going to use Ineos for in terms of that. Whether he's going to put the debt on Ineos's books, which he has to pass it through the Ineos other stakeholders and shareholders, which might take some time. But then you've also got a situation where he might put some of it, he might put all of it, or he might put none of it. Like, because he's not definitively said, and because he doesn't have to definitively say, because it's not that sort of process, because the Glazer family aren't bothered who they sell the club to. They just want the best figures and numbers for them. So effectively, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, there's a little bit of limbo there. But in terms of if the Qataris came in the debt straight away off, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I'm not going to sit here and give you an answer that's not factual and true, because I know just as much as you about the Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid in terms of if he's going to clear the debt or not, because it's not out there. It's not what's being said behind the scenes or from the markets within the US or anything. It's not being said anywhere what his proposal is. The only thing I know about Sir Jim is he's going to use Ineos in some way. That's the only thing that I know in terms of that side of the offer.
Fair enough, man. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Tom. Appreciate it, buddy. Question: could this be United decide some ever due to? Well, I think we'll focus more on the. We'll probably come back to that when the transfer window officially sort of opens as a question. So, but yeah, I see your point there. Ratcliffe. Well, okay, Cameron. Moses Mowada says, shout out to Mowada in the chat. Really appreciate it, bro. Is the ongoing possibility of a Super League the reason why the brothers want to remain? What else might drive the valuation so significantly in a few years? That's a good question. Like, is that it? Because I legit can't see, unless there is a possibility that Super League is going to happen. And obviously the values that were coming in, every week that what's his name was shitting was a lot. So I can see that. But if not for that, I don't really see how United's valuation goes up significantly in the next 5-10 years. Unless I'm missing something. What do you
think? The only thing that's missing from what you just said is, in terms of the possibility of a Super League and the brothers wanting to remain, they would be remaining, but they wouldn't control the club. They don't have control. So then, if they don't have control, we can't take Manchester United into a Super League because they are, if you like, a minority. They're a minority shareholder with 20%, so they don't control it. So they can't take Manchester United into a Super League. That's the thing.
Yeah. So I'm still cracking my head about what is the obsession with Avram, and wanting to stay. Like, this is why I don't understand. It's like, it surely can't be for because if it's just financial, it doesn't make sense for the reason that you've sort of described, and also the risk and evaluation, and the fact that they wouldn't be in charge of necessarily pushing for a Super League or what have you. So I don't really get it, aside from either maybe sentimental reasons or that Avram genuinely loves the club, even though I don't really get how he does, because he has no real interaction with the fans. So I like, for me, the whole thing should just be a no-brainer. So it just doesn't make sense as to why. I don't get it. I really don't.
It depends upon who's got the, I guess, proposal in the park. Look, if I said it to this way, this isn't what's true, but if I said it is this way, the Qataris have put a clear plan and vision of what they want to do if they buy Manchester United. And Sheikh Jassim has made that very clear from his personal statement that he made upon entering the process. I'm clearing the debt, I'm building a new stadium or rebuilding, I'm investing XYZ amount of money into Manchester United, all the different teams. I want to focus on racism, inequality, and making Manchester United a worldwide brand to attack those social issues. those were his, if you like, key points that he wanted to make. Around those key points, if Sheikh Jassim went to the Glazers and said, I'll keep you in with 20%, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe does the exact same thing as he does now, and if you like, they matched proposals, both keeping Joel and Avram in, I don't even see that as a contest, because you don't know what Sir Jim's going to do if you give him your faith and your trust to let him control it. At least with the Qataris, you know, a new stadium's coming, or a redevelopment's coming, a training facility's coming. You know, the team's going to get loads of investment year after year after year. Like, and via doing those things, you already know under the Qataris, Manchester United's valuation will skyrocket. Whereas with Sir Jim, it could do, but it could also crash and burn because there's an uncertainty there. And that's why, in terms of what you just said about with Avram's mindset, the problem with Avram in particular is he's the most stubborn out of the whole Glazer family. And the reason why he's the most stubborn is he's the most financial thinking member. And what I mean by that is it's not just about the here and now. It's about the long-term future of his, not his independence, but his, how can I say, his financial gains. What he's going to sit there, you know, on his yacht to retire with. Like, that's what the sort of mindset that he thinks of. He doesn't think of the here and now. He doesn't, you know, get up out of bed and thinking, you know, what's the day going to bring? It's what's going to happen in 5 years, what's going to happen in 10 years. He was a forward thinker. And if I had to say it, you know, as factually as I could, he is his father's son in Malcolm Glazer. Like, he's got that brains, he's got the mindset, the same sort of mindset of his father, where you don't ever use your own money to invest unless you're willing to and prepared to take the risks and the consequences if it goes wrong. And by having that sort of mindset and thinking, that's normally the sort of problem that leads to a delay, leads to a hiccup, a U-turn, a change of minds. And maybe ineffectively, like, at the end of the day, love it or hate it, you know, whatever proposal some fans are backing, I just think from what the Glazer family are looking at now, whether it's Sir Jim, whether it's Qatar, whomever it is, I think Manchester United fans are fed up in terms of picking a side. They just want to know what's happening. Like, they just want to know the future. Forget your own opinion. Like, tell us what's actually going to happen. Because you've speculated for months and months. People. I know majority of the chat might look at the Qatari bid and think that's brilliant, perfect.
If I'm honest, I'm amazed that they didn't come to a conclusive decision about these things before they put the club for sale. Like, I'm amazed that the whole family didn't think, right, okay, for this, if we get this, you know, spoke amongst themselves and said, okay, if we get this amount, yes, we're going to set the price at 6 billion. Of course, if anyone paid 6 billion, they're gonna get it regardless. You know, I think we can assume it was a fact. But I can't believe that they didn't sit down and be like, right, okay, if we get this, we're going to put that price up. But if we get this amount, this certain amount, between, was it 5.5 to 6 maybe, you know, then we'll sell, and we come into agreement with that, you know, or you know, under this amount we won't sell, and then at another particular amount, okay, we can potentially do, like, I just don't, why I don't accept for, like, you know, for these guys who are supposedly business people when they're not, they're clearly, how so indecisive they've been since October, November last year. It's just insane. Let me just quickly read some content. I'll come back to us for a few final questions. Janeway's waited. We ain't going up in value anytime soon. These Glazer are tapped. Scott says the problem is with Sir Jim is if he does not buy out of 2 Glazers, where would he get 2 billion in 3 years' time? Is the question. Presumably he can't borrow it. Presumably.
No. But in 2-3 years, more money would become available from what he would make out of Ineos. Therefore, he's then got the cash at hand to buy the rest of them, and that's what I mean in terms of if he sets a fee, then he knows at least what he needs to have in hand for in 3-4 years. Whereas if he doesn't set a fee, then he can have 5p in the bank, he can have 5 billion in the bank. Right? Like I say, it depends on if he sets a fee or not. Because then if he sets a fee, he knows what he has to pay. If he doesn't set a fee, he's in the dark about it. And Joel and Avram can demand whatever price they want, or they could stay there as long as they want. It doesn't matter. So,
and that's probably the worst case scenario, to be honest. Chamberlain says F Liverpool, well, they're fifth now. Lee K says just started streaming now. My question: who is in pole position to buy United right now? Lee, because we did touch on it at the beginning of the show, but we'll just do a bit of a summary in the next 5 minutes. We've been gone through the comments, so we'll come back to that and just do a brief summary as to where we are. Okay. Cameron says Tom United are getting linked to Kim Min-jae. Apparently that's done. Kane for 100 million, Mount for 80 million, chatting to his players. Where's the money coming from? They know something, I'm sure. It's all speculative at this point, isn't it? Would you agree?
Well, you can always speak to like a player and agree something. That's like with the news, for example, with Mason Mount, like it's all around his camp. It's his agent, like it's all around him personally and what he would get as a wage, a contract, like it's him personally. Same with Kim Min-jae, the same thing there. Man United would know, and every club in the world knows what they have to do to get Kim Min-jae. Wait for the first couple of weeks in to trigger the clause in when would it be again? Sorry, July, I think it is again. Wait for the first couple of weeks in July. You then can trigger the clause. I think you have 16 days to trigger the clause. Otherwise, Napoli can renegotiate the release clause or something like that. It's a difficult terminology in terms of Kim Min-jae's contract. And then, for example, like we such as Harry Kane, you have a situation where you don't know what he wants to do personally. You know Manchester United are prepared to buy him, but you also have Daniel Levy, who has promised and swore by behind the scenes to his personal agent, to the people close to him, that I would never sell Harry Kane to a Premier League rival. I don't care if they stump up the money that I want or not. I'm never going to give my most prized asset and my biggest weapon that I have at this football club to somebody else to then improve them. That's how Daniel Levy looks at it anyway. He'd rather sell him abroad in terms of Kane. So you can speak to players' agents and stuff, but getting a deal done and talking the actual numbers with a club, that's a step further. And that's where if you know what the budget is, like I say, Ten Hag at least minimum, he knows he has 100 million in terms of the budget right now, but he could have 180, 200. He could have just 100 if Man United couldn't sell a lot of the players that they want to. Depending on that's the problem. It depends on not who comes in and buys Manchester United. It depends upon how much Manchester United can get for the players that they sell to balance the financial fair play rules. That's the problem. Why? And because you overpaid for Anthony maybe last summer, Casemiro, like because you made big investments that you did last summer, maybe not for the prices that you could have done if you signed those players a lot earlier in the window, and you did, you focused on them as opposed to one player, Frankie de Jong, like you might have had, you might be sitting here with an extra 50, 60 million pounds to play with. So love it or hate it, or it could have got that striker that Erik ten Hag wanted in January. Like, love it or hate it, there is that narrative that you can spin there, but a lot of the talk anywhere on Man United in terms of transfers, they're just speaking to agents. That every club does it towards the end of the season. Get in contact with people's agents, build relationships, build partnerships, and then you go from there. If you're very interested in a player, you contact the club, and then you do a deal via that. So at the end of the day, with a lot of the players that are linked here, it's all about agent contacting and building partnerships. That's it.
Fair. No, that makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that, Tom. Also said Dante Bertin. Well, I mean, you know, is that going to be on the news? The ownership decides. Jay Jock and Charles J. Collins said the ownership decides whether I'm a permanent Real fan or not. Oh, Jay Jock, man, I know you're a Manchester United fan, man. So, but yeah, there is. I think there's an element that a lot of United fans are saying that that potentially might make their loan moves to Real Madrid permanent if the worst case scenario happens. I mean, I actually don't think people would have a problem if Sir Jim had bought the club outright as a full sale. I think the biggest issue that people have is the Glazer stay. That's the biggest issue, and also just the fact that the Qatari deal, from what's been promised, sounds a lot better. Simple as that. Sid says, well, if this deal doesn't go through with Qatar's preferred bidder, they're going to be pissed off and will not do business with Glazer in future. That's fair. Amar MEFC says development on the academy centre academy seems to be getting underway. I assume that would still be going on. Yeah, that's interesting. Zoytang TV, shout out to Zoytang TV, says, I'm sure the Glazers could always get personal loans with the 20% Manu asset. Also, they avoid more taxes. Sometimes the asset is better than a cash in hand. 20 years ago, the Glazers bought United for 750 million. Now it's worth 65 bill. The club value will always rise with inflation. Do you have any thoughts about that, Tom?
Yeah, in terms of the money that they used to buy Manchester United, as it's well documented, it wasn't even their own money. As far as I'm aware, they used £200 million of their own money as a startup investment when they bought the club. But that was when the father was involved, when you had Malcolm Glazer involved, and things like that. That's the only time that I ever recall that Manchester United had, the Glazer family had invested money into Manchester United. That's the only time I can remember. So, in terms of what Zoting's saying in terms of the club valuation will rise with inflation, depended upon what Manchester United do, because Manchester United have maxed out where they are right now. Like, you can't get any more money than what it is valued at right now. It's physically impossible. You have to improve things for then the evaluation to improve. And the Glazer family will not dive their hand into their own pocket to do so, because it's far big of a risk to invest billions than millions. Years ago, like I say, investing £200 million, it was a small risk for a big reward. Whereas now it's a big risk for a big reward, where it's whether the risks work out or not. And some projects, like when people think building a new stadium is like it's easy, it's really not. It's not like building, it's not like building a Lego set. Like, have your hands in a lot of different projects like the infrastructure.
Although Daniel Levy seems to be able to sort it out with far less complication than Glazers seem to be able to do. But I do see a point there.
But the only thing with Daniel Levy was the stadium was delayed another season where they had to play at Wembley than it was originally proposed to do so, which meant that they lost more money, and it meant that they had to pay more money out to build the stadium, but then they had to pay more money out also to then still play at Wembley for the following season, which then, in effective, cost them more money. And the Spurs supporters, like I said, I'm not saying this is disrespect, but a 90,000 capacity stadium at Wembley Stadium for a club that hardly used to at White Hart Lane, I think it used to barely get 40, 45, 50,000 seat stadium, like in it at the time originating. Like, it's hard to make masses from something that you don't own. Like, they don't own Wembley Stadium. Whereas, like I said, turning it back to Manchester United, unless the Glazer family invested in the infrastructure, and I don't just mean like put a lick of paint on it, I mean you increase the tiers, or you renovate, the hospitality suites, you modernise the stadium and the infrastructure. Same thing with Carrington. Like, for a lot of people that's anyway seen the products and the sort of pictures and videos that are coming out, Carrington Training Ground is under development, albeit it's only the academy building. And in terms of like stuff like that, people say, well, that means a deal's done and things like that.
Okay.
The facilities needed to be improved a long time ago, and the infrastructure needed to be improved a long time ago. But like I say, it's come to the point now where they have to do it if they want to get more money, is what I'm saying, effectively.
Well, I mean, that's what even, love him or hate him, that's kind of what Ronaldo was sort of saying in the thing, that he was having left in the United for how long, he was kind of shocked. And people kind of got a little bit like, oh, I know, I'm not going to go into the stuff that Ronaldo was sort of saying things. It's right that he left, but it was interesting that, like, a lot of stuff that he said with the infrastructure of things, only now fans are thinking, oh, maybe we think that's important. Like, we can't actually, the reason why City's ahead of United is not just the fact that they've got Pep Guardiola, but that they've made the investments appropriately. And it's not just getting the right players, getting a better start. I think that's the key that I try to educate a lot of fans, people watching, is that it's all, for long-term sustained success requires investment in all areas, not just the starting 11, but the overall squad, the training facilities, the academy, etc. That is just the reality of things. And to think that United are going to be anywhere near competing Manchester City next season, for me, based on what I've seen so far, it's actually laughable. It's actually laughable because, because the squad isn't there. the stadium is falling apart. Investment is needed in the academy and the Winsmore's team, etc. So these are the things. These are the things. And Wesley kind of sort of says, why would the Glazers have the club looking at signs if they didn't plan to still be here next season? So Jim, by the look of it, well, I mean, it's kind of what Tom has kind of already sort of alluded to before, to be honest. And Scott says it's Glazers spin, Wesley. Yeah. So I know obviously you have to bounce the second, Tom. So, but just oh, sorry. What's the Zoiting thing's gone? So a Big Mac meal from McDonald's was £5 now. Now it's £10. The price of things always rise through the years, whether it's a better product or not. As long as United on the PL, they will rise. Yes and no. I don't disagree with that completely, but it's what they're essentially describing inflation. So, but the thing is that that doesn't preclude United getting in more and more debt and companies losing money. Because the cost of the value of United may go up if someone's in the Premier League potentially, but relative to what? And also the value of things around Manchester United also goes up. So the value of players. So maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but if the value of players goes up, if the various expenditures around Manchester United go up, but the actual value of Manchester United doesn't go up in line with those things, which it hasn't, because the success of Manchester United hasn't been there, then inevitably Manchester United will start to lose more money because they need to. You need investment. You need to draw investment. Is my understanding of it, but I could be wrong. So what I don't know what it says. Edward said, "What a complete load of total." I don't know what exactly is specifically wrong with what we're saying, Edward. If you want to just let us know in the chat. So just for obviously, just go ahead. Going back to actually Lee's comment, actually, just I guess a quick sort of summary again, sort of Tom, for those obviously watching. We've got about 90 people watching, so make sure you like the vid, subscribe if you're new, guys. Like and subscribe if you're new. 90 watching, hit that like button, helps the engagement. Subscribe if you're new, and check out the merch store that's up as well if you want to support the channel or put in a super chat. But just for those, can you just sort of briefly? Oh right, just be okay. Fine. Tom will be back in about a minute, so just give him about a minute. We'll come back. So while I'm waiting for Tom to come, because he's about to get a call, he'll be back in a second. If anyone wants to ask me any questions, then let me know. I'll just have a look in the chat. Okay, I need to. Abby says, I need to Sheikh Jassim. It's better for Ten Hag, please. I want Sheikh Jassim to come. I think a lot of people do. I mean, I'm looking at the poll. Sorry, Tom is obviously will be back. So he's just taking a brief phone call. Maybe you never know. Maybe that's an update. Maybe that's an update, guys. Maybe Tom is taking a phone call. Maybe be able to break us some breaking news, man. But looking at the poll, 95 votes, and clearly the vast majority of you, about 90% of you, think that Sheikh Jassim will actually own Manchester United. Only 10%. I didn't necessarily say who you want, but we'll see what happens. But I suspect that if I'm honest, and I think, I think that, if I was to summarize obviously what Tom said and what Tom has said so far, as given us a lot of really good side of information, is that what we know, is that last Friday, Sir Jim was going to be announced as the preferred bidder for Manchester United. That was the plan. Okay, that was unofficially, it wasn't obviously official, but unofficially, Sir Jim would have been announced as the preferred bidder for Manchester United, given the agreement they had where, the Glazers, as in specifically Avram and Joel, would stay, keep the 20% share, and Sir Jim would obviously buy out the other siblings. That was basically where we are. And that still is the case right now. However, what changed last Friday is that the Rain Group contacted Sheikh Jassim to up their bid, and they did up their bid. They did put in a bid for Manchester United, a sort of do it or die, take or leave it final bid for Manchester United, which was significantly higher. And what I think Thomas said is that the value, at least the initial value of the Sheikh Jassim bid, is actually higher than the Sir Jim bid. the value is considerably higher than a Zim bid. So I think that's Tommy back there.
Yeah, I'm back here.
Yeah.
Apologies.
No, it's no problem. Thanks so much, man. So just I've kind of begun to summarize what you said, but just regarding Lee's question, going back, just summarizing again, like where we are, in terms of who the preferred bidder is, who do you think is not the preferred bidder, and why.
Well, as I've always sort of reiterated the whole way through, it is Joel and Avram's sort of minds that decide where Manchester United go. The four siblings came into this, they wanted to sell. 18 months ago, 8 to 16 months ago, they were prepared to be bought out, and Joel and Avram were prepared to stay anyway. So, what they wanted 8 to 16 months ago, they effectively have now with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It just, like I say, it depends upon the Qatari numbers and offers. And I'm not going to come in here and say that I know the numbers because I don't. There's no reason to speculate. There's no reason to make up rumours and lies. When every group is under an NDA agreement, so if numbers are leaked and figures are leaked, then Manchester United, financially are, leaked, like it's ruined. And Liverpool would know what Manchester United make in a year. City would know what Manchester United make. Like, your rivals would know a lot of information that they shouldn't know under like protection laws and things like that. That's why you sign an NDA agreement. In terms of the Qatari offer, from what I know and from what's been told to myself and colleagues that I work with, is that the offer that's on the table now from the Qataris is a better offer financially than what Sir Jim Ratcliffe would propose to buy out Joel and Avram. And this final offer aims at those two. It's a better offer to buy them out now than what Sir Jim Ratcliffe could potentially buy them out in 3-4 years' time. So, if I'm being honest, I would be very shocked if it was the full 6 billion, but I would be even less shocked. I would be even more shocked, sorry, if it wasn't close to the 6 billion. And what I see as being close is £5.5 billion, where it's not the full 6, but it's closer to the 6 than 5. Something like that. Or, like I say, 5.5 being bang in the middle. And being bang in the middle, whether that includes the debt or doesn't include the debt, whatever, like, at the end of the day, the way how I look at it is Joel, after seeing this Qatari offer, has done a complete flip-flop, and he's distanced himself in terms of, I'm not going to make the call. I don't want to be the one to say we stay or we go. I'm leaving that to you, Avram. You're the final, if you like, the last man standing. You decide for us. And at the end of the day, the four siblings have done all they can. And they have pushed Joel in particular to stay. You should bow out with us. You get more money now than you would in 3-4 years if you stay without us. So we came into this as a family. Let's go out of it as a family. And effectively, Joel, like I say, 2 weeks ago, 14 days ago, had decided upon privately, him and Avram, for the whole family, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe would be the preferred bidder. That has been the decision privately, and as far as my knowledge has come in, has not changed. But ever since that Qatari final, 11th hour offer went in from Sheikh Jassim, the sort of minds and the opinion of what has happened with Joel in particular is something about the offer has changed his mind in terms of, well, I was all in for Sir Jim, but now I'm open to Sheikh Jassim.
So to interrupt you, Tom, what do you think it was specifically? Because I think that's been the interesting thing, is that what do you think it's been about the new Sheikh Jassim offer that has caused a delay that's twerking? Is it just purely the fact they're getting more money, or do you think it's like what do you think specifically about the bidders has done it?
Honestly, I've heard to say the structure of the bid, in terms of its two sectors, you have a big buyout fee up front, and then you have the final offer upon when I think the way that the Qatari offer would work, in a sense, if they've used the banking sort of minds that they have with having Bank of America around. The Bank of America normally advise investors when they make investments into any sort of business, you put up a big startup fee, And then if you don't fully own the club, which Sheikh Jassim would own 69%, and then he's already stated he wants 100, so he would want to buy out the over 31%.
Yeah.
Upon buying out the over 31%, he would then hand over the rest of the money to Joel and Avram, or to whatever siblings it links to, but primarily it would probably be to those two, because they hold the most shares out of the whole Glazer family, is what I'm saying. So in terms of that, that's why I think in terms of the Qatari offer, if what's been said to myself and colleagues is true, in terms of they would get more money up front now, and also they would get the better deal now than they would in 3-4 years' time. So effectively, I can see now why they are saying it's deal or no deal, because they have put what they've said and what people have been waiting for them to put on the table. This blow you out of the water, take it or leave it. Like there is no going, like there is no more. They are not going to give any more. This is it. And if they did, I would be very, very pleasantly surprised. From this point now, it's either Sheikh Jassim buys Manchester United or he doesn't. That's this offer. And effectively from, like I say, in terms of Joel, ever since this offer came in, he's twitched. He's had a twitch. Something's triggered and thought, we get more money now. We get more money now than we would in 3-4 years' time. And the only thing, and like I say, I always said to Jim, I think a lot of people knew it, Sir Jim Ratcliffe never had the money to beat the Qataris. The only thing that he could beat them by was mind and mindset and strategy. And in terms of the strategy, he can do one last thing. And if he does this one last thing, he will get Manchester United.
This is what United is asking. I think what was that I need to offer them? But sorry, go on.
He needs to offer them no set evaluation price to buy Joel and Avram out in the future.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is he can say to Manchester United fans, I'll buy them out in 3-4 years. He can say that. But so long as he doesn't put a clause or he doesn't put a number in place with Joel and Avram, which they are prepared to agree upon, where it's 1.5, 2 billion pounds for 20%. So long as he doesn't put a number, in place, then I believe Sir Jim Ratcliffe will win this. And why I say that is because Joel and Avram, Manchester United could crash and burn. It could rise up and succeed. The clause that he's in place then, whatever it's set at, if it's £2 billion, they are guaranteed to get £2 billion in 3-4 years' time, so long as they wish to trigger the option and Sir Jim's prepared to buy them out still. Unless things change. So effectively, what I'm saying now is, if they wanted to bow out now with the best financial offer in 3-4 years' time, Sheikh Jassim will be announced as preferred bidder. If they want the best financial offer for all 6 members to agree upon as a family, Sheikh Jassim will be announced as preferred bidder, 100%. So Jim Ratcliffe, if he doesn't set any sort of a price tag with Joel and Avram, so then they can demand 3 billion, 4 billion, they can demand the world from him in 3-4 years' time. So long as there is not a set price in place, I believe, anyhow, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe 100% would still stay Joel and Avram's preferred choice as preferred bidder, and the other 4 siblings, it facilitates them because they still get bought out in the process anyway. So ultimately, it helps Sir Jim because he gets what he wants. He gets control of Manchester United. It helps Joel and Avram because they still stay with 20%. And it helps the other 4 siblings because they get out like they've wanted to do for the last 8 to 16 months.
So just to interrupt, let's just say hypothetically that let's say Sir Jim wins and he wins because of what you just said, because of that's like not setting a price cap on buying up the Glazers. Will this by not doing that, will this negatively harm the club going forward? Because as we said, we've got no guarantee the value of the club or the money, the availability of money for them to do that in the future. So will it be more debts? Will it be more debt level on the club? Essentially I'm asking is will that way, potentially be harmful for Manchester United going forward if they agree that with Sir Jim?
Probably, it depends. Like I say, it depends what Sir Jim does, and the reason why I say it depends what he does is because if he has his money tied up in his stadium to build a new stadium or redevelop, if he has, a set amount of money that he's prepared to invest in all of the different teams and, invest in Carrington, those sort of things, like, it depends if he has money tied up in projects around Manchester United. If he doesn't, I don't think it would harm Manchester United, really, because he buys out the 4 siblings. Like, he would have control of Manchester United, therefore he's in control of the debt, not Joel and Avram. So then we can effectively see what Sir Jim is like as a football owner. What he, are the Nice fans correcting what he's saying, that he goes back on what he says, or, he's not as forward thinking as a football owner as he is maybe a businessman. Is it all about money to him? Like, those sort of things. Is he truly a boyhood Manchester United fan? The rhetoric, I guess, is
I just think I just can't see how you can be like, if you're gonna be using your money from Ineos or whatever to buy the Glazers out more so in the next 3-4 years time, and then also still have the money to invest in a stadium, to invest in the academy product, to make the signings for the first team squad that United sort of need. Like, if he has the money to do all those things, and do them well and recruit well, then by all means, I don't care. Yeah, sure, be Manchester United owner. But what I feel is that, like, all of the money is going to go towards acquiring Manchester United for the next couple of years, and really, we're not going to see the benefit of any real investment into the stadium, into the squad, like genuine investment into those things. At best, maybe until like potentially a decade from when the sale transferred. I mean, that's my fear. I mean, I don't know. Is that what do you think?
The one thing I've always said anyway with this Sir Jim bid is it's more about structure than it is superstar signings. And I don't want to sound bad in saying it in terms of how he might be imposed upon as an owner. I would see him running, if I'm being completely honest, whether he has control at 50% or he buys the whole thing, it doesn't matter. So long as he's the person who controls the club, the way I would see Sir Jim Ratcliffe running Manchester United would be, he'd appoint his own CEO, whether that be Sir Dave Brosford himself, whomever, Edwin van der Sar, somebody like with some sort of allegiance to Manchester United, or some, football or business qualification, somebody who's got a good CV and a background behind them. He would appoint his own preferred sporting director, which, as I've said, and reiterated commonly, Paul Mitchell is his desired sporting director for Manchester United if he was to come in as the new owner. I would be shocked if anybody else was to come in, if John Murto, maybe was demoted to head of recruitment, something like that. Like, maybe keep him in-house, but you have somebody leading your department for you. You bring in your own men, essentially. Basically do what Todd Bowley did at Chelsea. Assess what you've got, then bring in your own people. And then from there, in terms of, like you said, in terms of a lot of the money that you might use to buy into Manchester United, yes, you could say that in terms of the short term, but the one thing that I would always say was to Jim Ratcliffe's sort of proposal after purchase would be that he's never said what he's going to do, which you can say that's a good thing, because I say it's a bad thing. But in terms of the investment that he can bring to Manchester United, the way I see him running Manchester United is very similar to how FSG runs Liverpool. The only difference between Manchester United and Liverpool is Manchester United would make more money than Liverpool would, revenue-wise. Still to this day, even with a decayed stadium, probably one of the worst training facilities in the Premier League, not a brilliant, successful team in the last the last decade, in comparison to, say, a Liverpool, where all of those things that I've just mentioned are better at that football club. Love it or hate it as being your biggest rival. But when you look at the sort of productivity, so long as Manchester United is a debt-free football club, the same way that FSG run Liverpool, if Sir Jim ran it with Manchester United, so long as Manchester United is a debt-free football club, it would work. Because Manchester United can be self-sustaining. So long as Manchester United, A, are a debt-free football club, and B, become a more productive club in terms of buying and selling players for better profits. Effectively, you take what Chelsea do in terms of the model where they were brilliant sellers, but then you also take being a brilliant brand and having sustainability there. Manchester United would average out 250 million pounds per transfer window, every single window. So really, Sir Jim Ratcliffe would work But the big thing, I think, for Sir Jim, in terms of if he gets the fan support and the engagement that he would need, as opposed to what the Glazer family have had for 18 years, it revolves around the debt. If he do, because I think for what he's done in terms of the proposal, and he's lost a lot of United fans, if he was to follow through with the proposal, his preferred bidder does the deal, shebang. If he gets rid of the debt and it's a completely debt-free football club, I think that buys a lot of what he's done. I think that, if you like, it doesn't fully forgive him, but it opens the progress to say, well, I'm doing things different to what they did. I'm in control. I'm Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I'm the boy Manchester United fan. I always believe in my football club, and if that is the case, buy Manchester United, make it a debt-free football club, become self-sustaining, and via doing so, like I say, Paul Mitchell, people like that, they ain't people who are going to go to Eric Ten Hag or World Cup partnership with Eric Ten Hag and say, go and sign Kylian Mbappe. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to say, go and sign this young kid from South America. Go and sign this brilliant, emerging talent from the Asian market. Go and invest in young players and develop a team from there and evolve. That's what Sir Jim Ratcliffe's, if you like, plan and model for Manchester United is. Whereas maybe with the Qataris, it's more glitz and glamour. It's more, we'll have a new Old Trafford. We'll have a new Carrington. We'll have a Rolls Royce of a front line, maybe similar to what maybe PSG have at this moment in time. And Mbappe, Neymar, Messi, maybe not the egos, but those high profile players who cost in excess of 60 to 80 million pounds, that would be a mainstay every single transfer window that Manchester United would do. They would always sign a player, 60 plus, 80 plus million pound player per window, maybe one or two of them. That sort of model, the Qataris could, Sheikh Jassim could run Manchester United self-sustained, but also he doesn't need to because he has the money behind him to do fund the club. Whether people can say it's state money or state backed, whatever. Like the money's still there, but Manchester United, and as I've always said, a debt-free Manchester United is worse than a state-backed Manchester United, or just as worse, because you take the debt away from Manchester United, the shackles are off. Because commercially, we know Manchester United is the biggest club in the Premier League and one of the biggest in Europe. And if you take that debt away from Manchester United, you can spend 200, 250 million pounds. People can dream about Mbappe, mate. You won't be dreaming it; you'll be living it. That's the sort of mindset that is in the figurehead. So to summarise, in terms of what I said, if Avram makes his mind and decides I want to sell, and I'm happy to go with you, Joel, and agree with you upon the best financial, which is the best financial offer on the table right now for the here and now and in 3-4 years' time, so long as Sir Jim doesn't set a figure. So long as he doesn't, if he does set a figure, then the Qataris will win Manchester United, and Sheikh Jassim will be announced as preferred bidder. If not, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, if he doesn't set a price to buy Joel and Avram out in 3-4 years' time, then I'm sorry, if that's what Manchester United fans want to hear or not, Sir Jim Ratcliffe will be announced as preferred bidder. I would be shocked if otherwise, personally. And there's no 12-hour bids or anything like that from Qatar. I'd be very, very shocked. I mean, unless you have like I've always reiterated with you, maybe a standing joke on the show. If you have an Elon Musk, a Jeff Bezos, or Bill Gates wake up the next morning so they want to buy Man United, unless you have something crazy like that happens, then I don't really see anything otherwise.
Right. Let's first of all, thanks again so much, Tom, for I really, really appreciate it. So we're gonna obviously begin to round things up because I know you have to head off. Just guys, if those are watching, thanks so much for watching. We're almost 100 people watching, so I really appreciate it. Please like the vid, subscribe if you're new to Red Devil Studio, follow us on Twitter United, and make sure you follow Tom at TomJournalist1 on Twitter as well. Obviously, reiterate that again at the end of the show. Let me just quickly read some comments and then just one final question, Tom. Where we Oh yeah, okay, here we go. We'll be here. Ravi says, Sheikh better for our club. They have a nice project and good finance. Oh wait, so no, it's actually further up than here. Actually, let's have a look. Yeah, because I think this is yeah. Vinicius Freta says, go get Neymar, Vitor Roque, Casado, and the South Korean of Napoli, as he means Kim Min Jae. Sarat said will be just the same as Glaze if he stayed. You never know. Ravi says, yeah, I've read that. Vinicius says, don't let Barcelona get Vitor Roque for a bargain of 8 million. Be smart. I don't think United are currently run that way, to be honest, bro. Okay, Rat's going to win, then he will not want to lose. Is he American? Is it as in Sir Jim? No, I think Sir Jim is British. So they're really waiting for the best deal until the final minute. Yeah. But I think it's also the thing is I don't think it's so much the best of them. I think the issue for me with this, as I said, the whole process United read is that the Glazers just haven't been clear as a family unit what they want. That's the key thing. It's like if they were clear, if they decided right at the beginning of the process, process, we will sell Manchester United for this much. Yes, we put out 6 billion, but if we get a bid of 5.5 billion, say for example, somewhere between 5.5 to 6, we will sell it. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that was just a unanimous decision. Then I don't think we'd be in a situation here. The problem that we're here is that there doesn't seem to be a consensus amongst the Glazer family, and the two of the siblings, want some of them want to stay, a partial stay. Because it sounds to me that the problem is that like the division of families that there's those in the family that want a full sale 100%. And then there's other of the family that just wanted partial investment or further investment. And I think that the reason is that there's a disagreement over those two things, and that's what's caused the problem. Vinicius says United need to get. Yeah, I know. I'll read that. You pretty much said that a few times, Vinicius. Ratcliffe not building no new stadium. I mean, if he's going to be spending all that money, I'm not sure. Ilya says, I support Manchester United. I'm 3 years old. I'm now 41. If Jim get United, I will be done with this club. I mean, it's going to be hard for a lot of fans to take. I think that you always have to just wait and see and hope. But yeah, it's going to be very difficult for I think a lot of fans. I understand that. There'll be riots if Ratcliffe takes over. We need Qatar to compete the Glazers in the way the Ratcliffe lied for me is all I need to know. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he lied. I think it's just more the fact that I don't think people assumed that he would keep the Glazers there. That I think is the big. I think he knew he couldn't compete with the Qatari bid. So the fact that he's keeping the Glazers there is what a lot of people have sour. If he just upped his bid, then we'd have no discussion really. I think I wouldn't mind either or, So see, so Mo Wada says that's exactly what I said earlier. Unlike the smaller clubs, we don't need a sugar daddy. We generate enough to compete with anyone under FFP with the right structure, and that is true. City champions under 18s, 21 City champions. I hate to say it, but City, well, they're there for a reason, though. They're there for a reason. So United, but if Jim doesn't set a fee, doesn't it still mean he won't give them the money they want?
Well, effectively he would, but it's just not a set fee. So if he doesn't set a fee, that better helps the Glazer family, because then they can, if you like, have a mini, not a mini takeover cycle, but they can have a mini minority investment negotiation with Sir Jim and say, well, based upon what you've done in 3-4 years, this is what I'm saying, 3-4 years time, you could have a new Carrington, you could have a new stadium already underway. Like you could have a project. Sir Jim's project could already be in full throttle. So then Joel and Avram would know when those projects are complete what they can get more for Manchester United for their 20% effectively. But like I say, Sir Jim can make a success of it, but he can also make a pig's ear of it, and potentially, like I say, you don't know. Like what is, as we know with the financial world, for example, with say Credit Suisse, like brilliant, one of the biggest banks in Switzerland, one of the best brands, runs out of money and goes out of business. Like due to the inflation rates and the cost of borrowing has completely ruined them financially, and then suddenly, like, they've capitulated, and then they've had to, you know, administrated and then taken over. And ultimately, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, like I say, with the business and the model that he's in with Ineos, petrochemicals, and, you know, with some of the investments that he has with Formula One, and like you talk about carbon emissions nowadays in the world and the environment, like the way the world's going right now, it doesn't suit for Sir Jim to make more money, if that makes sense, because of how people are being more environmental and cautious of the environment and, you know, pollution, you know, toxic emissions, like things like that put into the air, into the world and the atmosphere. When you have a lot more people who are thinking like that, that doesn't help people like Sir Jim Ratcliffe, because it hinders what he makes annually and money wise. Maybe not in the short term, but in the long term, it's cause for concern, yes. But if it's not a case if he won't give them the money they want, he just won't set a fee in place, which is better for the Glazer family, rather than having a fee that they have to stick to, and that's all they can get. So, love it or hate it, it can work both ways. It can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, because if Jim makes a pig's ear of it, well, we're still guaranteed $1.5 billion or £2 billion. Whereas if they do set that fee, then if it builds a new stadium and everything, and suddenly their 20% could be worth £3 billion as opposed to £2 billion, like they've lost out on an extra billion effectively just between the two of them. But like I've always said anyway, there comes the process where if they ended up with $1 billion, not pounds, dollars each, they would have been more than happy and satisfied. But as I've always said, in terms of the minds with Joel and Avram, there's always a price in mind. They've always said there's always a price that we will sell to and that we will sell for. If you come close to it, we'll think about it. If you come directly on it, bang, we'll sell. Simple. Though there is always a price in mind, and this is what I always say. You can think about it with Daniel Levy, who's one of the most shrewdest football owners in world football, not to slander, you know, Spurs and Tottenham Hotspur. Daniel Levy will have a price in mind to sell Spurs for, just like every other football owner will. Love it or hate, man. You can say what you want about Sheikh Mansour. There's a price that he would have in his mind that Manchester City is worth for, and if somebody gave him the money, I'm sure he'd sell it, because he's made a return on investment and what he's actually gave to that football club. Political pawn, tool, whatever you want to say, it is what it is. Finances are finances and business is business. So at the end of the day, with someone like Sir Jim, he will always regenerate cash and regenerate money.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Quickly, so Joe Brindley says we will spend a lot the first year, no matter who buys us, but with Qatar, we can evolve into a true competitor to City. I don't think we'll spend a lot, to be honest, in the first year. If Qatar don't buy us, we are Scooters, Andy Coates. So yeah, you got ahead of. Okay, cool. Right, okay, yeah. So I will. So what I'm gonna do is just a final question, just so before we head off and start. When do you approximately think that we will actually get a final decision from the Glazers as to who will be the owner of Manchester United?
Well, I was told earliest would have been today, as we know it. Like nothing's came, and from what I was told, latest would have been Tuesday. But like I say, because I've known that Avram's mind hasn't been made.
Do you think they're waiting until the end of the season to officially give the announcement? Do you think?
Well, people came up with the theory of they were waiting to see if Man United qualified for Champions League football, which they have done now. So obviously, you can maybe use that as a tool to say Manchester United's worth more, or you've got money available now, like where I don't understand what he's saying, but they have the money available now to finance this window, and they could still walk away from negotiations. Like they could not choose Sir Jim, they could not choose Sheikh Jassim and say we're going for a no sale. And they have the money now in place where they could effectively stay one more year because they qualified for the Champions League. So you can see it from different perspectives, but I don't necessarily think it's about waiting until the end of the season, because the FA Cup, winning a trophy, it doesn't matter to them. Like
Mm-hmm.
you make peanuts from the FA Cup, winning the FA Cup, than you do for securing Champions League football. So the ratios are there. Like I say, it's already set in stone and it's done. So they know the budget that effectively they have, the mini budget for the summer from qualifying from Champions League football. And this is what I mean in terms of, because whatever party comes in and buys Manchester United, they can't do a lot because of how FFP works and how Manchester United are on the peripheral of it, and they are on UEFA's radar in terms of FFP. Because of that, Manchester United could easily breach the charges if they're not very careful. And like I say, if they don't sell adequately and effectively in the summer window, there's going to be problems, not only for what they can bring in, but also from what they can do in the future as well. Because you then have a lot of players that aren't marketable. And then suddenly you might have to sell one of your best players that you have in your team, God forbid. You know, Marcus Rashford suddenly to PSG, like for a ridiculous figure like it was being touted last summer, it might become a genuine possibility, but just because of the financial situation you're in. Like, it can happen to you. People believe that it can't happen to a big football club. Barcelona is the prime example that you can look at and think, finances and making bad investments and big investments will always catch up with you. And that's the best example that you can use in terms of that.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it. I will get to your comments, guys. But like Tom has to head off. But I would really, really appreciate, as always, you coming on the channel, Tom. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, everyone in the chat as well. Remember, if you are new, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. It's been obviously a really, really good show. Obviously, I'm actually on vacation for next 2 weeks, so I'm going to be taking my flight to abroad actually. So I'm going to be out of commission for Monday and Tuesday. So I'm hoping we actually get an announcement this weekend so I can actually go live while I'm still here. But if not, it'll be like a brief video for me, and then we'll probably have a catch up at some point on the coming Wednesday, you know. So, but yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it on the show. Thank you, Tom, as well. Guys, if you want to make sure you check out Tom's Twitter handle at TomJournalist1. Follow him on Twitter and show him some love. He's really, really helped out this channel, and he's really been one of the few journalists who's actually been able to explain the whole process with a lot of more common sense and less reactionary sorts of nonsense. Fingers crossed that we get the outcome that we want. But yeah, have a nice day, everyone. Peace out and cheers. Peace, peace, peace.